Hey everyone, another day, another handheld, with this one being one of Anbernic's most nostalgic options yet, the RG34XX. The RG34XX is powered by Anbernic's favourite H700 chip and takes more than a little inspiration, to put it lightly, from Nintendo's Game Boy Advance. It comes in a few colourways, including the just announced Glacier, as well as indigo, black, and both transparent red and green colours, and comes in at around the $70 mark. Inside the inspired looking box, as well as the handheld, we've got a screen protector, charging cable, manual, and even a lanyard, which was a blast from the past to see, but does make me wonder if anyone out will actively actually use it. I'd be curious to know if you happen to use them on your original handhelds too. So, in terms of specs, the RG34XX is powered by the same H700 we've seen in the rest of Anbernic's XX range, meaning it gives us smooth performance up to some of, but far from all, of the Nintendo 64 and Dreamcast catalogues. We've got a gig of RAM, as well as a pretty decent 3.4-inch display at a 3x GBA resolution of 720 by 480, so GBA content really does shine here thankfully, as well as Wi-Fi, Bluetooth and mini HDMI output, and a respectable weight of 188 grams, with Anbernic's Linux OS out of the box, though with good custom firmware support across the rest of the XX range. I imagine it won't be long until there's a number of custom firmware options available as well. Straight out of the box, it's hard to avoid the obvious comparison to the original Game Boy Advance, so I thought I'd bring my Raspberry Pi GBAs along, one largely using the original shell bar for the additional buttons, and the other being the metal FreePlay Zero shell, which still remains my favourite modern take on the Game Boy Advance shell, thanks to its modular speaker grills, which allow for dual stereo support, dual analog support, or a mix of both, and in my opinion a better stacked shoulder button design compared to the more cluttered and awkward setup of the RG34XX. I don't want to spend too much time talking about the metal FreePlay Zero design, especially considering it's no longer in production, but it certainly feels a lot less cluttered on top, though the RG34XX does have dual microSD card slots, as well as reset and menu buttons to fit in as well, and to be fair, still manages a very nostalgic design that's well suited to emulating the handheld it takes its inspiration from. I do really like the X and Y buttons are shell coloured, and how Anbernic have stuck so closely to the original Game Boy Advance style, while giving it modern controls and additions like a screw-in battery tray, considering it's now rechargeable, a power button rather than slider, and the digital flick-style volume wheel, as well as its wireless capabilities. The only real drawback, with the fact it's so close to the original Game Boy Advance shell design, being it's fantastic for Game Boy Advance gaming, pretty great at other handheld gaming, but far less comfortable when it comes to gaming that requires constant use of the four face buttons and shoulder buttons, which is where it's at its most uncomfortable. Overall though, if you love playing Game Boy Advance games, the RG34XX is certainly a nostalgic filled experience. In terms of controls, you'll certainly feel at home if you're used to the original Game Boy Advance controls. The RG34XX has the familiar small D-pad with pretty loose movement to it, alongside relatively difficult to pull off multi-directional input. Equally, the X and Y buttons are smaller and awesomely fade straight into the shell colouring to them. The face buttons themselves, all round, feel great, especially the bigger A and B buttons, though the L2 and R2 shoulder buttons are a bit of an awkward press to get to. Again, the RG34XX is at its best when playing Game Boy Advance and more classic systems. I personally really like the controls outside of games that require constant 4-button and shoulder button usage. So, while it does feel very cluttered while pressing all buttons at once, while playing the original Game Boy Advance games, it feels absolutely fantastic. In terms of out-of-the-box firmware, we've got the same Anbernic firmware available across its other H700 handhelds. The same general rules apply as always, mainly that the Game Room's emulators are best avoided, while the RetroArch systems as a whole offer a better experience. Things are relatively easy to use and navigate around, and although it's not a perfect software experience out the box, it, to be fair, isn't too bad overall. So I'll cut some gameplay footage now before summarising back up at the end. Overall, the Anbernic RG34XX is specifically aimed at those with nostalgia towards the original Game Boy Advance, and as a modern Game Boy Advance Retro Handheld, it largely pulls it off. Ultimately, if you're looking for a very nostalgic experience and want to play Game Boy Advance and below, the RG34XX is certainly recommended. But with PlayStation above, it does start to become far less comfortable. That's it for now though, thanks so much for watching.